Today I'm going to save you some embarrassment. I'm going to point out 12 specific typos to avoid in your writing. By the way, my name is Brandon McNulty. I'm the author of Bad Parts, also the author of Entry Wounds, and welcome to my writing channel. Just because something is spelled correctly doesn't mean that it's used correctly. And just because you have a word processor that has a spell checker and a grammar checker doesn't mean that that word processor totally understands your story and understands the message that you're trying to send. And because of that, we often come across typos in our stories that we overlook until we do a really fine-toothed combing through during the proofreading stages. And today I want to take a look at 12 different typos that may pop up in your work that may make you look like an idiot or a scumbag or something in between. Typo number 1 is barely and barley. And this is one mistake that I make a lot. Whenever I'm writing my stories, I guess my fingers are moving too fast and I end up typing up things like, she barely escaped the attacker, or she barely passed her driver's test. And of course that's wrong. It should be she barely. And the thing is, sometimes when you're just typing too fast or your head isn't in the right place, you get a couple letters mixed up and you get a word like barley there. Typo number 2 is truck and trunk. Sometimes when we're describing vehicles in our stories, we get our signals crossed and we start thinking about different things and we type one thing when we mean the other. We might say that a character got into their trunk when we meant that they got into their truck. And other times we might say that they opened their truck when we meant that they opened their trunk. And this can cause a lot of confusion in your stories. So whenever you are dealing with vehicles, maybe hit that Control F and search for truck and trunk and make sure you're using them correctly. Number 3 is overhead and overheard. And this is one you need to be careful of, especially if you have a character who is listening to music that is coming through overhead speakers. I made a mistake in my novel Entry Wounds about this, where I had a character who was pumping gas. They were listening to country music that was coming from the overhead speakers, but instead I called them the overheard speakers. And I didn't catch this error until the proofreading stage. It almost made it into the final book. And it's just one of those things that it's very innocuous. It's something that spell check and grammar check are not going to catch, so be careful of it. Number 4 is soldier and solider. If you have characters in your story who are in the military or they have a military background and you type up the word soldier a lot, be very careful because the word solider is hard to distinguish from it. That letter I it can be flipped around and it looks just about the same. Make sure you Control F this one because it does pop up a lot if you type up the word soldier. Number 5 can get pretty funny, and it's bear and bear. And if you have the first spelling, B-A-R-E, if you say somebody has bare feet, what you mean is that they have feet that don't have any socks or shoes on. On the other hand, if you spell it B-E-A-R and you say somebody has bare feet, you're writing a brand new type of werewolf story. And maybe that's what you're going for. And if that is what you're going for, by all means, go crazy. If you have a bare-chested person who has the chest of a grizzly bear, by all means, let it rip. But for most of us, in most typical types of stories, you're going to spell it B-A-R-E if you're talking about bare feet or the bare essentials or bare necessities. Number 6 can get very strange and disturbing, and it's public and pubic. And I shouldn't have to tell you this, but unless you are writing for the adult film industry, your characters should not be going to the pubic library, nor should they be making pubic service announcements. Number 7 is bowl and bowel. And while it's true that both of these can contain food, the only one you want to eat out of is the first one. Bowel, on the other hand, is something that should only be referring to someone's digestive system or the inner workings of something like a city. Number 8 is weather and weather. And you'd be surprised how many people get the two of these mixed up and they just inadvertently screw them up from time to time. But when we're talking about weather, and if it starts with W-E-A, that weather is referring to things like temperature, wind, and precipitation. The other weather, the one that starts with W-H-E, that one usually comes before an option or a dilemma. For instance, you might have a sentence like, I don't know whether or not I'm going to subscribe to Brandon's channel. I don't know whether or not I'm going to hit the like button. I don't know whether or not I'm going to pick up a copy of one of his novels. Number 9 and 10 follow the same principle, so I'm going to be grouping them together. And number 9 is its, and number 10 is your. Now with these two, you want to be very careful. A lot of people make mistakes with its and your. They don't understand how they work, or sometimes they just forget the rule from when they were in grade school. But whenever you have its or your, you need to pay attention to where that apostrophe is. If there is no apostrophe, that means the word is possessive. If you write a sentence, maybe you're talking about a character who steps on a cat's tail. You would write the sentence, your foot stepped on its tail. And in this case, there would be no apostrophe because your is describing foot. Your possesses foot. And then its tail, that also would not have an apostrophe because its is possessing tail. Now, if there is an apostrophe, that means that the word is a contraction. It's two words combined together. And what's contained within that contraction is a verb that performs action. So if we rewrote that sentence I just gave you, you might say something like, you're hurting the cat and it's panicking. And in this case, it would be, you are hurting the cat and it is panicking. Number 11 is similar to 9 and 10, and it's there, and there. Now the first there I'm going to show you is the contraction. And we just talked about how a contraction contains a verb and performs action. So if you see that apostrophe, that means it's a contraction. It means it's actually two words combined into one. So you can always just break it apart if you're confused. Ask yourself, do I want to say they are going somewhere, or they are doing this, or they are friends, or whatever it is. The second spelling of the word there is T-H-E-R-E. In most cases, this refers to location. And one of the easy ways to remember this is to look inside the word there and you see the word here. Here is a location. H-E-R-E is a location. So if you see that within the word there, that means that it's referring to a location. And the third spelling of the word there is T-H-E-I-R. And this is the possessive form of the word they whenever we're talking about their car, their dog, their honeymoon. You use T-H-E-I-R. And an easy way to remember this one, you look at the I in this word and you say to yourself, okay, I refers to in their possession. That I is a little clue that you can remember if you're struggling. All right, and then the last one is one that everybody struggles with, and it's affect and effect. The first one is affect, and then we have effect. Now, when we talk about affect is a verb. When you affect, you act. And an example sentence of this would be, cold weather affects my nose. It's acting upon the nose. It's a verb. And then with effect is a noun. Effect is an end result or consequence. And an example sentence would be, cold weather has an effect on my nose. Effect is a noun in this instance. So I hope this helps. Question of the day, what is one typo that you constantly make in your writing? Let us know in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to support the channel, please pick up a copy of either one of my novels. Also, be sure to check out my other videos. Hit the like and subscribe buttons for me. Share this video with a friend. And as always, remember to keep on writing.